Welcome, one and all, to this house of worship. We greet the autumn time of turning with the churning of our own hearts, the desire to be changed, the impulse to turn inward, the yearning for new hope and new life, to return to the world with new eyes and fresh commitment. Sacred Spirit, dwell with us this hour. Help us carry the joy and the passion of our spirits into whatever gloom the weather or the world might hold. Opening words this morning come from the Sufi mystic Rumi. What will our children do in the morning? Will they wake with their hearts wanting to play the way wings should? Will they have dreamed the needed flights and gathered the strength from the planets that all men and women need to balance the wonderful charms of the earth so that her power and beauty does not make us forget our own? I know about all of the ways of the heart, how it wants to be alive. Love so needs love that it will endure almost anything just to flicker for a moment. But the sky's mouth is kind. Its song will never hurt you. I sing these words. What will our children do in the morning if they do not see us fly? Each time we enter this sanctuary, we want our hearts to be alive. We want to love. We want to fly. Each time we gather, whether it's with first-time curiosity or with been here since the steam engine familiarity, we come out of our own little world for a moment and ask ourselves if there might be a greater purpose.
morning is from the book of Exodus. We join the Israelites just after Moses has led them out of captivity in Egypt and into the wilderness of the desert. From the wilderness of sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses, and they said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out to Egypt? To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" And so Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah, which means testing, and Meribah, which means quarreling, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Here ends the reading.
If I must fall
What brought you here? Was it a desire to give your children a place to sort out matters of faith and values? Was it a desire to pause and have a place to make meaning of your own life? Was it a crisis that set you back on your heels or maybe knocked you clean over and made you look for something more? I'm guessing it wasn't a beleaguered prophet who was slow of speech, and you weren't traveling with a tribe of people from the same lineage. But I've been wrong before. Whatever it was that brought you here for that first time, I wonder, did you find it? Inspiration, healing, support, community? If you're past your first time with us, I'm gathering you found something here. But I wonder, have you kept in touch with that yearning that brought you here? Have you let it change you? Have you let it change your world? Now, I watch healing and connection and transformation happen all the time among us. It's one of the greatest joys of being your minister. It's really remarkable to stand up close as new friendships form and broken hearts heal and new possibilities for service and justice-making in the world emerge in our midst. But I often wonder if we could do more. And that's not just the overachiever in me speaking. I had a conversation at our Unitarian annual meeting, the General Assembly, last June, with one of my favorite lay leaders in our denomination. I'll call her Anne. Anne is someone who's passionate about faith and clear about how it's transformed her life. She loves her home church. She's involved in about 1 million activities of service in her larger community. But when I asked her, quite innocently, how things were going at her home church, a cloud of shame and anxiety crossed her face. "I feel terrible," she said, "because I've been avoiding church. Every time I go, I feel pulled into something else to do. It's stopped being a place where I feel fed and nourished. I do so much for elsewhere. I miss the people, but my life is too busy to take on the work of nurturing the church." As I heard Anne's pain and sadness and guilt at admitting this to me, I couldn't help but wonder whether there are folks in our midst who feel the same way, or more likely, folks who are no longer in our midst who felt like Anne did. In his book, Kicking Habits, Tom Bandy makes the case that one of the reasons that traditional churches are in decline is that they've been addicted to perpetuating institutions at the expense of nurturing spirits. People come looking for healing of deep wounds, and we offer them a spot on a committee. People come wanting to know and learn how to live lives of greater meaning, and we ask them if they can help us balance our budget. He drives the point home painfully with one diagram, in which he offers a flow chart of a traditional church, or what he calls a declining church, and how it turns a creative idea from a yes into a no. In his comical diagram, which I confess would be funnier if it weren't so true, he shows the number of people and hours involved in taking someone's inspiring idea and great passion for service and making it an impossible task. First, it goes to a committee, then through a path of gossip to an executive board, then through talk in the hallway to a council meeting, then through coffee hour debate into an ad hoc committee, then back to a council meeting, then to a congregational meeting, then the minister gets involved and tries out some active listening. What I hear you saying is, all to have it land at a congregational meeting where it's met with a resounding no. In this hypothetical congregation, it takes 115 lay people, 10 weeks, and 275 hours to say no. Ouch. The unconscious behavior of the churches he describes a pattern I see all too much in our own and in which I am deeply implicated, is so much like the behavior of the Israelites in the desert with Moses. Here's their prophet, having gathered every bit of his courage to stand up to Pharaoh and then to walk his people to freedom, dragging along these ingrates who just can't seem to get it together. They've missed the point of the bounty of God's gifts and tried to hoard them, only to have them rot just before they arrive, where we meet them in this morning's passage, in which they complain that they are thirsty. They're about to stone their somewhat fearful leader for bringing them to this place with no water. When does a prophet catch a break? As it turns out, never. The Israelites had walked out of Egypt so happy for their freedom. Moses' sister Miriam had led them in song as they crossed the desert, dancing. But soon enough, that joyful spirit succumbed to the trials of life without a home. They lost sight of their passion and the promise of freedom. They went so far as to say they'd rather go back to captivity. It wasn't that they didn't want the freedom, of course. And it's not that we don't want the healing and hope and deeper meaning in life that we came to church seeking. But there's a special kind of courage and commitment it takes to go the next mile and stay the course to get to the transformation we seek. The place where it's not something easy to receive, but actually asks something deep of us. It's easy to come and sit in Sunday morning worship, or at least I hope it is. It's harder to open ourselves to deep relationship, to speak aloud the swirling chaos, the deep hunger, the sense of emptiness our spirits often have, and ask for help with the healing, with hope, with transformation. The Israelites' behavior reminds me of some behavior I'm not so proud of in my own life. You see, I was devoted to nerd chic as a teenager, and being my version of cool was a full-time occupation, from which there could be no vacations, especially no family vacations to national parks with your 2 younger sisters and desperately uncool parents. 10 whole days without hearing the police or Duran Duran, using a curling iron, or talking on the phone with a friend, I might as well have died. But even in my self-absorbed haze, there were moments when the miracles in front of me broke through after that long car ride where I was complaining bitterly of being so very thirsty, so far from what I felt really might nourish me. And there would appear water gushing from a rock. Half Dome, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone. My breath was gone and my self-absorption lay winded on the ground. Everything came into perspective, at least for a few moments. I was out of my own little world, population me, and realizing that greater purpose that ties us all together, that sense of awe and wonder at the splendor and the gift that life is. The wonders I saw on those trips were things I would not have chosen to seek out. They're also some of my most unforgettable memories. Those epiphanies received on my reluctant journeys inform my spirituality daily now. Now, I don't mean to suggest that our church or the Israelites were exactly like a teenage girl pouting in the back seat while her father communed with Paul Harvey on the AM radio. We've come to church willingly. Goodness knows it's not a common or expected thing for folks to do anymore, and there are plenty of other ways we could be spending our time. And when we're challenged, most of us find ways to make our inner resistance at least outwardly good-humored. We've been surprised enough in life to know not to knock something too hard until we've tried it. And if there are things that we refuse to try, we do our best not to draw attention to it. We're in touch with our desire to see those mountaintops and those canyons. But we still need someone, a prophet in some form, to make us stay in the car until we get to a place where we actually experience what we say we're yearning for. So who are our prophets? Where does our deliverance come from? How do we honor the call to get out of our own little worlds and move ourselves as individuals and as a congregation into that place where manna comes from heaven and water gushes from a rock? Bandy proclaims that the work of church is to ignite the passions, to enliven the song in the hearts of all who come, and then help us discover our gifts and help us to put them to use in the world. His bold statement makes me imagine us as walking barrels of kindling, awake to our passions, aware of our own power, and then being ignited, sent into the world to find that water in the rock, to quench the thirst we have, to join our great passion with the world's great need. What does that mean for how we do church? In the Exodus story, as in too many churches, the voice of God is one far off, heard by only the capital P prophets. But here, I know, and I know that we believe, there is a sacred voice, a divine presence that speaks in and through each of us. We hear it best when we're together making sense of the mystery. It might be heard far off by some, but I hear it best when we are most intimately together, taking risks with our hearts, daring to trust one another's wisdom and witness each other's struggles. It takes a kind of courage to hear that voice. Not the courage of armor and weapons, but the courage of healing from heartbreak and daring to love again. If we're going to make it to the land of our freedom, the place where we feel most alive, free to use all of who we are in service of something greater than ourselves, we need people around us to hear the call, help us hear the call and find our way. I don't know how many of you have ever been on a big ship, but I was fascinated to learn this summer on my first time aboard such a vessel that the place on the ship where you gather in an emergency is called a muster station. Now, muster simply means gathering, but there's something about that term for this purpose that's compelling to me. What if church could offer us not just worship, but also our own muster station? A place to gather courage in troubled times, a place from which to coordinate our response when the seas are rough, a place to pool resources, to get instructions, and to make plans to face that open sea. Sunday worship is getting on the ship, but the muster station is where you make the plan for navigating your waters with the particular gifts and struggles you bring. Staying on the boat or in the car across the flat, open, monotonous stretches and holding on through the winding, stomach-turning routes takes something else. For that, we need the encouragement and deeper relationships of small groups. In these gatherings of 5 to 10 people, we get to know each other well and learn to be prophets for each other. We share common interests and take joy and pleasure in them and find ways to make use of them in the world, in service to others in our world. By sharing of ourselves twice a month, we can listen for where the sacred speaks through each of us. We can help each other navigate those sometimes bumpy roads of self-discovery, and we can share in the deep breath of awe when we witness that magnificent wonder that is our greatest gift come to life. Even if it's only an aspiration and the greatness has yet to be discovered, we can be with others who will take as much joy in it as we do. I've heard from many of you that you're worried about committing time, sure that your lives are too busy to follow through on the commitment to be with others in this way. I have no doubt that they are. But I'd ask you to consider trying a small group before deciding you'll fail at that commitment. I ask that you muster the courage to disrupt some things in your life to make way for a new thing. Let yourself and whatever yearning brings you here be first for just a few weeks. Decide that you'll make yourself go for 3 months. That's 6 times. And then see whether you feel like you can walk away. The Holy One is among us, my friends, waiting for us to listen to the stirs of our own spirits and to heed them, waiting for us to dare to fly so that our children can see how it's done, waiting for us to have the courage to venture out even though we might fall, waiting for us to move out of our own little world, out of our own little church, out of our known ways, to see and live the greater purpose that can remake our world and make paradise real right before our eyes. Are we too busy for that? Are we too busy for that? May we not be. Amen.